We're up to Route 21, more than they have. Despite the 21,000 trillion questions tussling in his head, Scoop doesn't say much as Dad drives him to a hotel near the hospital where he can sleep in a real bed for a while. He does ask the most important one, though. He was in the hospital. We gotta listen to see what's happening. He does ask the most important one, though. It tries to choke him on the way out of his throat. Is Gma gonna be okay, Dad? Dad's neck muscles tighten, and his hands twist on the steering wheel of the rental car. The RV Scoob learned was impounded, which brings to mind stray animals trapped in cages and makes him a bit angry, but perhaps that's because he knows he's not going to like what Dad's about to say. The old man sighs, his hands relax, like all the fight's gone out of him. She doesn't have long, William. I spoke with her doctor on Monday, and well, he stops talking, peeks at Scoob out of the corners of his eyes. You sure you want to hear this, son? Scoob nods. So Dad nods too. Your grandmother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 6 months ago. 6 months ago? Mm-hmm. And she told the doctor she didn't want treatment, wanted to let it run its course. Dad shakes his head sadly. Doc said she had no idea how your grandmother was even doing because Mom, Gma, quit coming in for checkups. She'd already reached stage 3 and... Dad pauses to take a breath. Scoop doesn't say a word. That means it's spreading fast, William, Dad says.
Mama,
but she seemed fine.
Hey, is that on the book?
No, that is Scoop. Comes Scoop's reply, unbidden. If people have cancer, shouldn't they seem sick? It's like that sometimes, Dad says with a shrug. There aren't always symptoms you can see. Now Scoop's eyes are wet again. He's pretty sure he's cried more over the past 24 hours than he has his whole life. So she's gonna die. The air in the car gets soupy and Scoop can tell the question is hitting Dad harder than Scoop realized it would. Dad's always so practical. 1 + 1 is 2. Scoop turns to look at Dad, who at this moment is just a sad man with a sick mom. And it occurs to him, this has got to be harder for Dad than it is for Scoop. Yeah, Gma's still Scoop's favorite person in the galaxy, but Dad's known her so long. His first home was in her belly. Eventually, Dad finally says. More stuffy silence. Then, I'll finish making the arrangements once I've got you settled. They'll release her from the hospital this afternoon. No charges have been filed against her yet. He shakes his head. If only he knew. I'm hoping they'll let us drive the camper back to Georgia. They'll likely confiscate it as soon as we get there because of... Now his face is turning red, which oddly enough makes Scoop grin just the slightest bit. This is the daddy nose. Wound tighter than a yo-yo string. Never mind, that's neither here nor there right now. Point being, we'll return to Atlanta and your grandmother will stay here with us until... He stops again. Until she's not there anymore, Scoop finishes. Yeah, that. We'll make sure she's comfortable. And, Scoop watches the bump in Dad's neck move up and down, like he's trying to swallow, speak something, but he can't, which is Scoop is fine because he doesn't need to. The drive back feels strange. They are able to take the RV, and Dad hires a nurse to travel with them for Gma's sake. She stays asleep in the back for most of the trip, but when she is awake, she's lucid, as Scoop heard the nurse refer to. She doesn't say a whole lot to anyone, mostly just gazes out the window at the passing landscape, but a handful of times she and Scoop make eye contact, she smiles at him. Sadly, but it's still a smile. They make one extended stop back in Monroe, Louisiana, so Gma can use a real restroom and Dad can catch a nap, but of course Dad wants to talk first. As soon as Gma and the nurse are gone, Dad comes and sits across from Scoop at the dining booth. He doesn't say a word at first, which is fine. Scoop can't lift his eyes past Dad's beard, which is why he knows the exact moment Dad finds his words. Well, I'll admit I'm not real good at this part, Dad says, and now Scoop does lift his eyes to Dad's because those certainly aren't the words he was expecting. Dad takes a deep breath. I'm glad you're okay, son. I know I don't always do a great job of showing it, but you mean everything in the universe to me, William. I don't know what I'd do. He shifts his focus to the ceiling, starts rapidly blinking and doing the gulpy thing that makes his neck bump look like a bouncing ping pong ball. Scoop's never seen Dad like this, especially not when it comes to him. I know I can be too hard on you, and I'm gonna try to be better about that. When I couldn't get in touch with you all, those are the worst 72 hours of my life, son. Scoop's turned to gulp. So you told the police I'd been kidnapped? Huh? On one of our stops, I saw a news report. There was an Amber Alert, and they said Gma was being investigated for a string of jewelry thefts. Ah, Dad says, so you do know about that. He tugs at his beard. Is it true? What? That she, Scoop's roving gaze lands on Gma's bed. It's almost like he can see her confession scrawled across the duvet. Stole stuff? Dad sighs, sits up in his seat and narrows his eyes like he's been asking the same question. I honestly couldn't tell you, son. Apparently there's some surveillance footage at one place and enough evidence in another to make a connection. I can't definitively say she didn't do it. It's not uncommon for people to act rashly when they know they're coming to the end of life. She did sell her house, buy an RV, and take you across 4 state lines without alerting either of us to her sickness. There's old Dad, hypercritical in the most low-key way possible. She didn't kidnap me, Scoob says, with more slice in his tone than he intends. But since it's out there, I left voluntarily. And in case Dad isn't catching what Scoob's throwing, he says, I wanted to leave with her. Scoob watches the verbal punches land and immediately wishes he could pull them back. I didn't tell anyone you'd been kidnapped, William. Oh. I reported you both missing, but because of the other investigation, they lumped the incidents together, decided it was possible you were in danger, and decided to treat it as a family abduction case. And you didn't correct them? Honestly, Scoob doesn't know why of all the things, this is what's making him so mad. Dad studies Scoob's face. I'm going to tell you the truth, even though it might get you angrier with me, all right? Scoob nods. I didn't know that what they were suggesting was incorrect, William. I saw the security footage captured at one of the 4 stores she's accused of stealing from, and while it's hard to deny her, son, I know the woman who raised me, but once I learned she was sick and hadn't told me, hadn't told us, I didn't know what she was capable of. I knew you likely weren't in danger, and I also knew you left voluntarily and without coercion. What I didn't know was that where you were going and for how long, because she wouldn't tell me. And after she stopped answering my phone and wouldn't return my calls, I began to wonder whether or not she planned to bring you back. Scoob doesn't respond. It's not like he knows the answers either. When I heard the phone had been found somewhere, I started assuming the worst. There's a knock, and then the main door opens, and Dad rises to assist Jima up the RV stairs. Jima blows Scoob a kiss in passing, and then the nurse helps Jima get resettled into bed. Scoob can see the slightly yellow tint to her skin, and every time she moves, it's clear her back hurts. Once the curtain is drawn, Scoob expects Dad to sit back down across from him, but he doesn't. In fact, he doesn't say a single word. Just returns to the cab, draws all the window shades, slides into the driver's seat, and reclines to the limit. Guess they could all use a little time. Hopefully it's not more than they have. Route 22, and we're back to Georgia, the Peach State. Good. They get 17 more days. Most of them are good. Route 23, going for a drive. Scoob is strangely resolute as he and Dad return home from picking up the ashes. It was odd to him that there wouldn't be a funeral, but when Dad showed him the spot in Jima's will where she requested for things to be this way, Scoob didn't ask questions, just picked up the urn, made from the same type of wood as Jima's treasure chest. He glances over his shoulder at where the urn is sitting on the back seat. Dad didn't say a word as Scoob gingerly placed it there and strapped it in with a seatbelt. It was the most Scoob felt like he could do. Jima wasn't able to speak or move during her final 4 days of life. So Scoob's dream of strapping her into the car in person, not in ash form, so he and Dad could drive her past her old house can't ever come true, so this will have to do. Scoob rotates back forward and a surge of tears blurs his vision as Dad pulls up in front of the place. Dad puts the car in park. There's a red-headed guy chasing a toddler around the yard, which is newly fenced in. The house is so great. The house is also gray now, where it used to be bright turquoise before.
Well, what is this, Mom?
That's bug spray.
Bug spray for us?
It hits Scoob. This really isn't Jima's house anymore. Yeah. The shakedown over Winnebago didn't turn up anything other than $42,520 Scoob saw in the space behind the TV. And since there was nothing overly suspicious about it, children of folks who lived through the Depression are known for keeping large amounts of cash where they can see it, the detective said. Our guess is this was her life savings. The money and the RV, which Jima paid for in full, were turned over to Dad. He put the cash in a savings account for Scoob but hasn't decided what he'll do with the good old senior yet. No, Tessa. I need that, honey. No, honey, that's holding up my phone. Leave that there, please. You can use it in a little bit, okay? Sorry about that. I can't believe they painted the house, Dad says, wiping his own eyes again. And that is bland gray, too. We should demand they go back and change it. Scoob knows Dad is not entirely serious, but it does get his wheels turning. How much harder it must be for Dad to look at the house now. It's the one he grew up in. And Jima certainly didn't consult Dad before she sold it with his memories inside. Hey, Dad? Yes, son? Scoob forces himself to look Dad in the eye, and he puts a hand on Dad's shoulder. I'm sorry you lost your mom. At first, Dad doesn't reply, just nods. More tears run down his face. Then, I'm sorry too, William. They drive back home in silence, but soon they're in the driveway. Dad cuts the engine, but he takes the type of deep breath that makes it clear to Scoob he shouldn't get out yet. So I've been thinking, Dad says, And he doesn't have to say a single other word for Scoob to know exactly what he's been thinking about. Scoob's been thinking a lot too. And he already knows what he's going to say before Dad even asks the question. Scoob's nose is coming. I know I don't talk about your mother much, frankly. She's a painful topic for me, which I know is neither here nor there for you, but he stops, clenches his jaw, relaxes, resumes. Point being, she is your mother and she's been asking to see you, so if you'd like to meet her, that's okay, Dad, Scoob says. Dad's head whips right faster than Scoob can blink. Scoob looks out the window. Probably sounds weird, but I don't think I'm ready. That's the truest thing he says in days. When there's no response, Scoob checks back to make sure Dad heard him, and on Dad's face is a look of surprise more pleasant than Scoob expected. But oddly enough, Scoob thinks he gets it. Dad's not the only one in the car who knows something about a mom the other guy doesn't. Tessa, don't touch that, please. Well, all right then, Dad says. You'll let me know when you're ready, I presume? Yeah, Dad, I will. Scoob has no idea what prompts him to open Jima's treasure chest and re-examine the contents 3 days later, but he's got everything spread out on the floor in his bedroom and he's going through it piece by piece. He unfolds the Mexico map, which he hadn't done before, and is shocked to discover there's a second circle in addition to the one around Juarez, a city called Guaymas on the Gulf of California. Puts it down and checks the green book again. Playa de Cortes is underlined between Guaymas. Scoob has no idea how he missed it. His eyes rove over everything else on the floor and hook onto the necklace on the key charm. Scoob smiles. He laid it out exactly the way Jima did in Mississippi. He carefully picks up the thin gold chain, turns it over, rubs a thumb over the key, and holds it up to the light, then squints at it. His eyes drop to the treasure box. Laying the necklace back down, Scoob picks up the wooden chest and takes it over to his desk so he can get a better look at it underneath the light of the lamp. Despite feeling like he is desecrating a holy relic, he flips it over and runs a hand along the bottom. Feels the grooves and edges, looks more closely at the sides, holds it close to his ear and gives a shake, and nothing. Still though. He sets it down and lifts the lid, traces his fingers over the velvet interior, sides, back, bottom. There's a bump, a tab, it seems, against the front interior wall, just behind where the latch sits on the outside. Scoob wedges a fingernail beneath it and pulls the little flap open, revealing a small hole. Scoob looks over his shoulder at the gaping entrance to his bedroom. Dad loosened up a bit since they got home, but the no closed doors policy still stands. Hopefully the guy doesn't decide to come upstairs in the next couple minutes. Because Scoob grabs the necklace and pushes the little key into the exposed hole. Perfect fit. He turns it, and the bottom of the box pops open, revealing a folded sheet of white paper with William Armando Scoobadoob Lamar scribbled on the outside. And when Scoob takes that out, he uncovers enough shiny, sparkly, glittery stuff to surely pay for college, buy him a car, and maybe even get him a decent-sized house, too. There are necklaces, bracelets, earrings, a pair of pink diamonds included. All these weird, bedazzly things with safety pins, all strapped down and tucked into a weird, cushioned crevice. He unfolds the note. You're a good egg, Scooby-Doo. Don't ever let anyone tell you different. Thank you for your impeccable wingman service to this old lady on her final adventure. Love you forever. Jima. Quick as he can, Scoob shuts the hidden compartment, locks it, conceals the keyhole, and runs from his room. Dad, he says, practically throwing himself down the stairs. He skids around the corner and into the living room. Whoa! What's on fire, son? Dad, we gotta go on a trip. One of Dad's thick eyebrows shoots up and Scoob turns to look at the urn on the mantle.
Where's the mommy in that?
They hold this position for who knows how long. Dad's sitting on his chair, Scoob standing beside it, staring at the remains of Ruby Jean Lamar, mother, grandmother, wife, pilferer of jewels, and they look at each other. Tessa, you're messing with my phone again.
Mama.
Please stop.
Mom, I don't think your phone's on.
Yes, it is. Dad nods. I'll book us a flight, but Scoob shakes his head. No? Guess we're going for a drive. Route 24 clean getaway. Dad's a good sport. He lets Scoob navigate the whole trip from his map, and they make the same stops so Dad can see all Scoob and Jima saw in their adventuring. Dad doesn't ask questions when Scoob leads him to a jewelry store in Mississippi, so Scoob can give something to a guy named Todd. Nor does he bat an eyelash when Scoob requests a gas station stop in Shreveport to hand deliver cards that say thanks for the anonymous tip. They don't make any stops at all on the almost 4-hour stretch between Texas, where Scoob and Jima's trip ended, and Ciudad Juarez in Mexico. But it takes another half day for them to reach Guaymas. Dad doesn't say a word as Scoob grabs his backpack and heads down to the beach toward the water. Just stares into the campfire he and Scoob built together from scratch. The RV is parked back at Hotel Playa de Cortes, which Scoob was relieved to find had been renovated since Jima and G-Pop tried to get to it in 1968. And he knows Dad is tired from the driving, so he wants to make this part quick. After finding a little cove beneath a small rock formation that juts out in the water, Scoob looks around to make sure no one's watching, then he drops his hands to his knees and gets to work. Once the hole is wide and deep enough, Scoob pulls Jima's treasure box, wrapped in about 27 layers of plastic wrap and full of everything that was already in there, plus the green book and Scoob's map, which he added as soon as they parked, out of his backpack. And before he can think too much about it, he sets it down in the hole and shoves dirt back over it. Finally made it, Jima, he says. Then, after a quick swipe at his eyes, Scoob stands and smiles. You made a clean getaway. So there we see Scoob and Dad finally making it to Mexico. And the end of their adventure. Well, that brings us to the end of Clean Getaway. I hope you enjoyed our read aloud. And until next time, I will see you then. Bye.